Before starting this narration, perhaps a few words should first be said about the glorious self-realized personality, Queen Kunti. To begin with, the tragic and heroic figure of Queen Kunti emerges from an explosive era in the history of ancient India. As related in the Mahabharata, India's grand epic poem of 110,000 couplets, Kunti was the wife of King Pandu and the mother of 5 illustrious sons known as the Pandavas. As such, she was one of the central figures in a complex political drama that culminated 50 centuries ago in the Kurukshetra War, a devastating war of ascendancy that changed the course of world events. The Mahabharata describes the prelude to the Holocaust as follows. Pandu became king because his elder brother Dhritarashtra had been born blind, a condition that excluded him from direct succession. Sometime after Pandu ascended to the throne, Dhritarashtra married Gandhari and fathered 100 sons. This was the ruling family of the Kaurava dynasty, of whom the eldest was the ambitious and cruel Duryodhana. Meanwhile, Pandu had taken 2 wives, Madri and Kunti. Originally named Pritha, Kunti was the daughter of Shurasena, the chief of the glorious Yadu dynasty. The Mahabharata relates that Kunti was gifted with beauty and character. She rejoiced in the law or dharma, and was great in her vows. She also possessed an unusual benediction. When she was a child, her father, Shurasena, had given her in adoption to his childless cousin and close friend Kunti Bhoja, hence the name Kunti. In her stepfather's house, Kunti's duty was to look after the welfare of guests. One day the powerful sage and mystic Durvasa came there and was pleased by Kunti's selfless service. Foreseeing that she would have difficulty conceiving sons, Durvasa gave her the benediction that she could invoke any demigod and by him obtain progeny. After Kunti married Pandu, he was placed under a curse that prevented him from begetting children. So he renounced the throne and retired with his wives to the forest. There, Kunti's special benediction enabled her to conceive, at her husband's request, 3 glorious sons. First she invoked Dharma, the demigod of religion. After worshipping him and repeating an invocation Durvasa had taught her, she united with Dharma and, in time, gave birth to a boy. As soon as the child was born, a voice with no visible source said, "This child will be called Yudhishthir, and he will be very virtuous. He will be splendid, determined, renounced, and famous throughout the 3 worlds." Having been blessed with this virtuous son, Pandu then asked Kunti for a son of great physical strength. Thus Kunti invoked Vayu, the demigod of the wind, who begot the mighty Bhima. Upon Bhima's birth, the supernatural voice said, "This child will be the foremost of all strong men." Thereafter Pandu consulted with great sages in the forest, and then asked Kunti to observe vows of austerity for 1 full year. At the end of this period, Pandu said to Kunti, "O beautiful one, Indra, the king of heaven, is pleased with you, so invoke him and conceive a son." Kunti then invoked Indra, who came to her and begot Arjun. As soon as the prince was born, the same celestial voice boomed through the sky, "O Kunti, this child will be as strong as Kartavirya and Shibi, 2 powerful kings of Vedic times, and as invincible in battle as Indra himself. He will spread your fame everywhere and acquire many divine weapons." Subsequently, Pandu's junior wife, Madri, bore 2 sons named Nakula and Sahadeva. These 5 sons of Pandu, Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjun, Nakula, and Sahadev, then came to be known as the Pandavas. Now since Pandu had retired from the throne and gone to the forest, Dhritarashtra had temporarily assumed the throne until Pandu's eldest son, Yudhishthira, came of age. However, long before that time, Pandu died as a result of the curse, and Madri gave up her life as well by ascending his funeral pyre. That left the 5 Pandavas in the care of Queen Kunti. After Pandu's death, the sages living in the forest brought the 5 young princes and Kunti to the Kodava court at Hastinapur, near present-day Delhi. In Hastinapur, the capital city of the kingdom, the 5 boys were raised in royal style under the guidance of Dhritarashtra and the noble Vidura, Pandu's half-brother. But a smooth transfer of power was not to be. Although Dhritarashtra had at first recognized the primogeniture of Yudhishthira, he later allowed himself to be used by his eldest son, the power-hungry Duryodhana, who wished to ascend the throne in place of Yudhishthira. Driven by uncontrollable jealousy, Duryodhana plotted against the Pandavas, and with the hesitant approval of the weak Dhritarashtra, he inflicted many sufferings upon them. He made several attempts on their lives in Hastinapur, and then he brought them to a provincial palace and tried to assassinate them by having it set on fire. All the while, the 5 youthful Pandavas were accompanied by their courageous mother Kunti, who suffered Duryodhana's atrocities in the company of her beloved sons. Miraculously, however, Kunti and the Pandavas repeatedly escaped death, for they were under the loving protection of Lord Krishna, who had incarnated to perform his earthly pastimes. Ultimately, Duryodhana, a clever politician, cheated the Pandavas out of their kingdom and their freedom in a gambling match. As a result of the match, the Pandavas' wife Draupadi was abused by the Kauravas, and the Pandavas themselves were forced to spend 13 years in exile in the forest, to the great sorrow of Kunti. When the 13-year exile had ended, the Pandavas returned to Hastinapur to reclaim their kingdom. But Duryodhana bluntly refused to relinquish it. Then, after some unsuccessful attempts to quell the hostilities, Yudhishthira sent Krishna himself to secure the return of the Pandava kingdom by peaceful means. But even this effort failed because of Duryodhana's obstinacy, and both sides prepared for battle. To place Yudhishthira on the throne, or to oppose him, great warriors from all corners of the earth assembled, setting the scene for what would prove to be a devastating world war. Fierce fighting raged for 18 days on the historic plain of Kurukshetra near Hastinapur, and in the end, all but a handful of the many millions of warriors were dead. Only Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, and a few others survived the massacre. The Kauravas, Duryodhana and his brothers, were devastated. In a desperate gesture of revenge, Ashvatthama, one of the surviving Kauravas, mercilessly murdered the 5 sons of Draupadi while they were sleeping. Queen Kunti thus suffered a final blow, the loss of her grandchildren. Arrested and dragged to the Pandavas' camp like a bound animal, Ashvatthama was let free only by the astounding compassion of Draupadi, the slaughtered boy's mother and Kunti's daughter-in-law, who pleaded for his life. But the shameless Ashvatthama made one more attempt to kill the last heir of the Pandavas, their unborn grandson in the womb of Uttara, by hurling the supreme Brahmastra weapon. When she saw the missile flying straight at her, Uttara immediately ran to the shelter of Lord Krishna, who was just about to depart for Dwarka, his majestic capital city. Krishna protected the Pandavas and their mother Kunti from imminent death by stopping the weapon's uncontrollable heat and radiation with his own Sudarshan disc. Having delivered the Pandavas from this last calamity, and seeing that all his plans were fulfilled, Lord Krishna was again preparing to leave. For years Duryodhana had tormented Queen Kunti's family, but Krishna had protected them at every turn, and now he was going away. Kunti was overwhelmed, and she prayed to Krishna from the core of her heart. Kunti was Lord Krishna's aunt. He had incarnated as the son of her brother Vasudeva. Yet despite this conventional tie with the Lord, she fully understood his exalted and divine identity. She knew full well that he had descended from his abode in the spiritual world to rid the earth of demoniac military powers and re-establish righteousness. Just before the Great War, Krishna had revealed all this to her son Arjuna in words immortalized in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, texts 7 to 8, which states, quote, "Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I incarnate myself. In order to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium." Unquote. Krishna had accomplished his purpose of annihilating the miscreants by orchestrating the destruction of the unholy Kauravas. Then he installed Yudhishthira on the throne to establish the Pandava reign, and he consoled the slain warriors' relatives. The scene of the Lord's imminent departure provides the setting for Queen Kunti's exalted prayers. As Kunti approached the Lord's chariot and began to address him, her immediate purpose was to persuade him to remain in Hastinapur and protect the Pandava government from reprisals. She said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 37, quote, "O my Lord, are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us?" Unquote. From this supplication, we should not mistakenly conclude that Kunti's prayers were self-serving. Although her sufferings were far greater than those any ordinary person could endure, she does not beg relief. On the contrary, she prays to suffer even more, for she reasons that her suffering will increase her devotion to the Lord and bring her ultimate liberation. She prayed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 24 to 25, quote, "My dear Krishna, your Lordship has protected us from the poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths." Unquote. Kunti's words, the simple and illuminating outpourings of the soul of a great and saintly woman devotee, reveal both the deepest transcendental emotions of the heart and the most profound philosophical and theological penetrations of the intellect. Her words are words of glorification impelled by a divine love steeped in wisdom. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 42, she said to Lord Krishna, quote, "O Lord of Madhu, As the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else." Unquote. And now I, Amalabhaktadas, begin this narration by first offering my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. Through Srila Prabhupada's books, recordings, disciples, and devotees, he is kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Thus may he, Lord Krishna, and Srimati Radharani bless this narration so that all who may hear it may, in spite of my imperfections and weaknesses, be filled with the desire for eternal, loving, devotional service to them, and thereby return home back to Godhead. And now, the teachings of Queen Kunti.